Okay, today we are going to talk about dividing radicals, or sometimes called rationalizing the denominator. Please make sure that you take out a piece of paper if you chose not to print out these notes. So to divide radicals, what you're going to do is divide the number in front of the radical sign, then divide the number inside the radical sign, and then simplify the radical. If you want to rationalize the denominator, we do this when the numbers don't divide evenly. You're going to simplify the denominator, meaning the bottom. Then we're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator, the top and the bottom, by the radical only the radical of the denominator, and then we're going to simplify. So if we look at our first example, we have radical 100 divided by radical 4. On your calculator, see if you can do 100 divided by 4. You do get 25. So this is the same thing as radical 25. Hopefully you realize 25 is a perfect square, so this answer is 5. If we look at the second example, the first thing we're going to do is divide the numbers in front. 5 divided by 10 is the same as 1/2 or 0.5. Then we're going to divide the numbers under the radical sign. 75 divided by 25 is radical 3. If you want to, you can rewrite this as radical 3 over 2. As long as there is no radical in the bottom, your answer is simplified. If we look at the next example, because there is a plus sign in the front here, making it 2 terms on the top, the first thing we're going to do is divide these. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then if we look at the radicals, 48 divided by 3 is 16. Then I'm going to go with the other terms. 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 27 divided by 3 is 9. Now I look to see if I can simplify. The square root of 16 is 4, so this becomes 8. The square root of 9 is 3, so this becomes 9. And 8 plus 9 is 17. Now, it gets a little tricky when you cannot actually divide. You can't divide a whole number, a 5, by a radical. So in order to simplify this, we do what's called rationalizing the denominator. So I cannot simplify a radical 2, but what I am going to do then is multiply the top and the bottom by the radical in the bottom. On the top, 5 times radical 2 is 5 radical 2. On the bottom, radical 2 times radical 2 is radical 4. Now we look to see if we can simplify. The square root of 4 is 2. So this answer becomes 5 radical 2 over 2. The next one, if I look, again, I have a whole number divided by a radical. We cannot do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is simplify my radical 20. I want 2 numbers, one of which is a perfect square. I'm going to pick 4 times 5 because that gives me 20. The square root of 4 is 2. So now this question really says 6 over 2 radical 5. I'm not allowed to have a radical in the bottom in the denominator, so I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by the radical in the bottom. On the top, 6 times radical 5 is 6 radical 5. On the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. Radical 5 times radical 5 is radical 25. The square root of 25 is 5. So now I have 6 radical 5 over 10. And the last step is you want to reduce this right here. In your calculator, you can say 6 divided by 10 and hit math, enter, enter. Or you can say they're both divisible by 2. So this becomes a 3. This becomes a 5. So your simplified answer is 3 radical 5 over 5. If we look at the next example, again, I can't do 40 divided by 125, so I'm going to simplify the 125. I'm going to pick 25 times 5. The square root of 25 is 5. So my question now becomes radical 40 over 5 radical 5. In order to get rid of this radical in the denominator, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by the radical in the bottom. On the top, radical 40 times radical 5 is 200. On the bottom, I'm going to get 5 radical 25. The square root of 25 is 5. And if I look at the top, if I see a 200, I'm thinking that's really 100 times 2. And the square root of 100 is 10. So my numerator, the top, becomes 10 radical 2. The bottom becomes 25. And once again, I'm going to reduce the whole numbers. I know both of them are divisible by 5. So if I divide that by 5, I get 2. If I divide that by 5, I get 5. So my answer is 2 radical 2 over 5 in simplest form. Again, if you cannot reduce these numbers here in your head, you can type in the calculator 10 divided by 25 and then hit math, enter, enter. Last question. Again, if we look at this, because there is a plus in the numerator, we would have to divide these, and then we would have to divide these. Since the ones circled in red don't work, what we're going to do is multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by the radical in the bottom. So I'm going to multiply this by radical 7. I'm going to multiply this by radical 7. On the top, because I have 2 terms times 1 term, I'm going to distribute. So this becomes 2 radical 7 plus 3 times 1 is 3. 7 times 7 is 49. And on the bottom, radical 7 times radical 7 is radical 49. And now I'm going to look and see what can I simplify. The square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 49 here is 7. So my answer becomes 2 radical 7 plus, multiply these two, 21 over 7. And the only way that you could reduce this final answer is if this whole number, and this whole number were all divisible by the same term, meaning they're all divisible by 2, or they're all divisible by 3, or they're all divisible by 5. Again, if you have any questions, please make sure you write them down, email me, or ask me next time you see me in class.